Kids, good morning. Today we're going to talk about a very unpleasant topic. We're going to talk about rape. And I have been a survivor of rape, not just once, but twice. I'm going to talk about it in some detail. Now, normally when people think about rape, they think of males raping females. And for the most part, that's what most people have in their mind. And even though that seems to be the most common type of rape, at least reported, I can assure you that rapes happen between males also. And in some extreme cases, females are raping males. Although not quite as common and definitely less reported than any other type. But rape is rape is rape is rape. And males and females, to some extent, deal with it psychologically and physically just a little bit differently. Now, we all know a lot of stories about females being raped and what it does to their psychology, and how when going to court they are victimized and blamed for maybe being too alluring or whatever, and all these old-fashioned notions. And it's simply horrific. I can't begin to express the disgust I see when that happens. Now, as a male that experienced two different types of rape over a 2-year period in my teens, I can tell you that it's had a lifelong effect, but in a different way, because as a male, I did not report them. I never even told my parents. The first time I felt like I was someplace I shouldn't have been as a 16-year-old, and that somehow I blamed myself for getting myself in a situation which I didn't intend to. In that case, I was basically attacked from behind and clubbed over the head with the top of a toilet tank, and raped in a public bathroom, and basically left there to die, with my pants down to my knees and bleeding and the whole 9 yards. And when I woke up and regained consciousness, I had a huge bump on my head that had blood. I was bleeding out of my anus and didn't know where I was, and pretty much scared to death. And I got in my car and I started to drive, and drove and drove and drove. Something just said drive north, and I ended up in a small town called Camarillo, California. And little did I know that was where the state mental hospital was. And I actually drove right up to the gate and sat there and just broke down for about 2 hours and wondered if I should just drive in. When I pulled myself together, I stuffed all that memory down and drove home and tried to pretend like I had a sporting accident playing football and everything was okay. I stuffed it way down. Now, my second rape occurred when I was 18, and I had traveled to a foreign country. In this case, it was Jamaica, and I had previously traveled to Jamaica and met somebody that I was rather fond of, and went there with all sorts of gifts and a promise of a wonderful mutual vacation. And I found myself on the third night being locked in a bathroom after being gang raped, brutally gang raped, by not only this person that I thought was my friend, but all these strangers that he had invited over. And I finally escaped when they went to go get some food. I managed to jimmy the lock open and grab my clothes and my passport, and I walked through the slums of Kingston, Jamaica, to the airport, and people were coming out of their houses praying for me because I was dressed kind of like Boy George, and they were certain I was going to be killed at any moment. And somehow I made it to the airport, and I sat on an airplane to Miami and then to Los Angeles, basically in the toilet the whole time, just bleeding large clots of blood out of my ass, and made it to the doctor the next day. Fortunately, I never contracted HIV because of these two things, but I can tell you I stuffed that experience down too, and I never spoke about it for about 7 years until I finally told my best friend. And it was rather traumatic to bring it back up, because as a male, as a female, it's easy to feel like a victim, because in the female state, basically you're always receiving sexually, you're not giving. As a male, you tend to always be giving sexually, not receiving, in the traditional male psyche. And it was emasculating, and it was horrifying to know that at my size, and I'm a big guy, I'm like 6'2.5", I played football, I was like Mr. Jock, to be overtaken like that is something that never ever crossed my mind, because I'm not a weak little, 5'4" little pussy. I can kick some ass pretty well. So the idea that I had lost control of my body to other men was horrifying to me, and made me not want to talk about it and not want to do anything about it. It made me greatly ashamed. Now, the other reason I didn't want to talk about it was because I didn't want, and I hear this all the time, and this bothers me a lot, I didn't want people to think that my sexuality had anything to do with my rape. My sexuality was identified years before the rape occurred, or the rapes. And some people, even to this day, have a hard time accepting their own homosexuality, and they may or may not have been molested or raped as a child or as a teenager, but because they have such a hard time accepting it, they blame their rape or their molestation on their sexuality. And in my case, that simply wasn't true. And if I felt like if I spoke about it, then people would say, "Oh, poor Michael, he became gay because he got raped." That's not the case. I was gay long before I got raped. It just happened to be that I got raped. And again, like I said, I'm not one of those small little timid guys that are easily beaten down. I'm a rather large kick-ass kind of dude, and I have a really shitty personality, and I fight no problem. I'll kick your ass and kill you just as well as look at you. So it was strange for me, and since there was no peers I could talk to, and there was no support groups way back in the 80s that you had anyone to discuss it with, you basically had to deal with it on your own. And I remembered something, and when I first made this video on my YouTube channel, which I had erased like 485 videos I had already made, I had always promised myself, because the one thing that helped me get through this after all these years was in the 1970s watching All in the Family, and particularly watching Edith Bunker, the rape of Edith Bunker, and then the aftermath, and how she coped with it, or the near rape. And it was the most brilliant piece of television I have ever seen in my life, the most brilliant piece of acting I think, ever in the history of theater of any sort. Gene Stapleton reached through America's televisions, yanked their hearts out, tore it up into 1,000 pieces, and stuffed it right back into your chest. And it made such an impression upon me at that young age. I remember crying and laughing and just being totally moved by that situation. And when it actually happened to me, the first thing I thought of was those episodes of All in the Family. And now they're on YouTube, so you can actually go look for them and find them. They are quite moving, and there are several of them. So I suggest you do that. It helped me get through that. And when I told my best friend, he allowed me to take my time to express all that I had been through. Now, there are things that have gone on in my life since then that have been rather unpleasant. I went through a period of very low self-esteem. As a matter of fact, as a gay man, most gay men find anal sex, receiving anal sex from a penis, to be a very emotional, very bonding type situation. But after being raped multiple times, basically you could rub your dick on the bottom of the sole of my foot and I'd have more attachment to you. It just doesn't do anything for me. And people that have tried or have allowed to have sex with me since then have found having sex with me anally is totally emasculating, because it's like I'm fucking them with my ass as opposed to them fucking me with their dick. Sorry to be so graphic, but that's the truth. So I find all my passion being what they call a top. And that's how I show my affection. The other thing is, I don't particularly like being touched, and I don't particularly like being naked, except in certain circumstances. But on the touching point, it's strange. Being a massage therapist, I touched for a living for many years, and I enjoy the art of positive, emotional, physical, spiritual touch. But when people touch me, it's not the same. I could basically do without it for the rest of my life. Seriously. And that is, and I have to fight with that, because that is an after effect of my rape. And I have to be aware of it. So coming at me in a touchy-feely type situation, or groping at me in a group, let's say at a bar or something, is definitely not the way to get my attention in a positive way. It actually can get you back bitch slapped real quick. It's kind of a natural reaction to me. So that's just another thing I wanted to share. It does have psychological effects. No matter how well you deal with it, there are going to be certain scars that are always going to be there. The important thing is to be aware of what those are, so that when they crop up, you can deal with them. And then when you're having a relationship with someone else, you can explain it to them before the relationship begins and as the relationship begins, so that when it does crop up, it's not a surprise. Because knowing yourself is probably the most important thing you can do. And being aware of your limits and your scars and limitations is vital for having healthy relationships. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you've been raped or have had a situation, please feel free to write me. Many of you in my last video series did, from all over the world, and I was so touched, both males and females, and I'm happy to discuss the topic or situation, or even just to listen to what happened to you with this very personal and very painful, unfortunate situation that happens sometimes. So thanks for listening today, and I look forward to hearing from you again and seeing you soon.